It is Monday, August 18th, 2025. Welcome into Armchair Analysis. We got a lot of news to talk about. The Michigan penalties were finally announced over the weekend. They were announced actually on Friday after the upload of Friday's show. We'll talk a little bit about that. We've got ACC preview. Alabama running back goes down with injury. We'll talk a little bit about that and what the effects of that could be for the foreseeable future. And then, of course, the Big Ten has talked about expanding the playoffs even upwards of 20 teams. We'll talk about those ideas, of course, the ACC preview here today as well. So thank you all for tuning in. If you're new around here, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. We're trying to hit 200 subscribers by the time we hit week 0, which is this week. It's game week. This is the last weekend was the final weekend without college football until the late portion of January. So make sure y'all, again, like, subscribe if you're new. We're trying to hit 200 before Saturday. But we're also going to be here year-round covering college football, covering the sport. And I'm really excited about it. I think we got a lot of really good content going. And I'm just really pumped for it. This week, it's going to be all about the Power 4 conference previews. I also have my top 25 releasing tomorrow. I have my playoff rankings, my personal playoff predictions coming out on Thursday, along with my conference championship picks that you guys are kind of seeing as we go here. My conference championship picks will also be out every day this week. We will also have my favorite segment that we do Thursday, my ultimate college football road trip. Meaning, if money were no object and I could go to any game I wanted any given week, what games would I go to? I love that segment every year. We're going to continue it here this season as well. Friday, we bring back the Take 10. I'm going to give you guys my favorite preseason bets, along with some picks for the weekend as well. We'll preview every single game going on Saturday. We will be live on Saturday morning, previewing specifically Farmageddon over there in Ireland. But there's plenty of games on Saturday to talk about. Sunday, we'll be live with about a 30-minute recap show. And then Monday, it's full steam ahead. We're all about week 1 and what week 1's going to look like. So make sure y'all stick around. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope y'all enjoy the videos here today. Forgive me, I'm still fighting this off, but I think I'm on the edge of this thing, this sinus infection I've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks. So hopefully that's true. Hopefully that reigns to be the case as we go forward here. But you never really know. I figured I'd be long since past this deal, but we're not, so we just keep pushing forward. Anyways, let's talk about this thing. Michigan has been notified, and it's been made public, the punishment to the Michigan program for the sign stealing scandal over the last couple of years. Here's what we were given, and this is really not too far off of what I had already said. There's a reason I didn't do like an emergency pod, because it wasn't unprecedented. It wasn't something we didn't expect to happen. I pretty much explained that the majority of this would happen. There was only a couple things that were missed, so let's go over the whole thing. Michigan is facing up around $30 million, if not more, in fines, to include losing postseason revenue for the upcoming season. I believe the next 2 years they'll lose postseason revenue, which is something new. But again, fines are a little bit different. Now, what I will say is $30 million is not a lot in the grand scheme of things, especially for the Michigan program. I don't know how much of a precedent that's setting, but it certainly is something. They've done something, which is what we were looking for. They will, again, forfeit all postseason earnings, again, going into that fine that they are already facing. Limit the campus visits throughout the season. That means that they will be able, I think they took maybe a 25% cut or something like that, the campus visits allowed. I don't know, that's really going to change a lot. The next 2 seasons worth of recruiting classes are already on a really good start, or on a really good trend right now. Both of them trending for top 10. I don't really see that changing. I think Sharon Moore's done a great job recruiting. I don't think that's going to change even without the campus visits. An added suspension for games for Sharon Moore. He's going to get a 3rd game onto a suspension. He will be facing the 2 games, Central Michigan and Nebraska, this year. And then there will be 1 added on, probably the first game of 2026. Which will be that game in Germany against Western Michigan. Not not a huge, really just a slap on the wrist on that one. 10-year show cost for Jim Harbaugh and an 8-year show cost for Connor Stallions. Those are kind of the big deals there. Why did Jim Harbaugh get a longer show cause than Connor Stallions? That's a question I got asked a lot. And I think part of it comes down to, I think it's a little bit of an add-on from Burgergate, when Jim Harbaugh bought burgers for players during the COVID lockdown period, the no contact period during COVID. Do I think it's fair? Not particularly. I don't really think it mattered that much, but at the end of the day, I also don't think Jim Harbaugh's coming back to the college ranks. So I don't think it really matters. Connor Stallions, does he deserve to coach again? I don't know. That's not really for me to decide. But what I do think is that the entirety of the penalty is fair to an extent. A lot of people wanted the hammer, or were calling for the hammer, being like death penalty, stuff of that nature, which we were never going to see again. We will never see that penalty again. People wanted postseason bans. People wanted a lot of other things. But what you don't get is that the NCAA is essentially powerless in this situation because TV kind of runs the deal, kind of runs the show. And unfortunately, nobody can make up for the revenue that Michigan could bring to the postseason at any rate, whether that's bowl games, playoffs, what have you. Nobody makes up for that. There's not many programs that can. That was never going to happen. Do I think that this sport works in a fair way? No. Do I think that this punishment works in a fair way? To an extent, because at the same time, it was said immediately after Michigan won the national championship, the NCAA president came out and said that we believe Michigan won fair and square. We will not look into vacating or taking away the championship. When that was said, we all kind of knew, or we should have known. Now, those of you who didn't believe it should have known what was going to happen, and that it was not going to be a severe punishment, because they went out and won without Connor Stallions, with eyes all over this program, and with everybody changing their signs, supposedly. So with all that said, nothing really changed, and Michigan's continued to dominate games and win a lot of football games, and ultimately go 15-0 still and win a championship. Even with their coach being suspended for 3 games, even with all the attention, all the controversy, still won a championship. You can feel how you want to feel. It's the same thing with Louisville 2013. Everybody remembers Louisville winning the basketball championship in 2013, even if it was vacated. Everybody remembered Reggie Bush winning the Heisman Trophy, even if it was vacated for a time. What does a vacated championship really mean? It doesn't mean anything. So there's going to be plenty of people putting an asterisk on it, putting whatever they want on it, but at the end of the day, nothing's going to change with it. And it shouldn't. I personally do not believe it should. But that's just, again, my personal feelings. This was not any different than what I kind of said was going to happen on Friday. So I don't think we need to spend too much more time on it. But let me know what you guys think down below. Was it fair? Not fair? Too much? Too little? Love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments, as we always do here on this show. Move on. Alabama has a bit of an issue going on, and Jay Miller was injured on Saturday during practice. An upper body injury, I believe, abdominal injury, if I'm not mistaken, but everything I've seen has been just upper body, so I'm not for certain on that. What does that mean? I think that's a bit of a problem, personally. No matter who starts on Saturday when they play Florida State, it will be a new quarterback. Jay Miller is a big deal because he is one of the more experienced players on this offense, and especially one of the more experienced running backs, and one who I think can work pretty well with this offensive line. Now, Richard Young has potential, but a lot of people are excited about him. I'm not going to say he's not going to be good or can't fill the shoes, but I think it is a blow to this Alabama team. Now, he is expected to be out, Jay Miller, that is, out for the Florida State game. He's not expected to play. That's the reporting we have as of this morning. So it's going to put a lot more weight on Ty Simpson's shoulders. It's going to put a lot of weight on Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard. It's going to put weight on Richard Young to perform and be a successful player at running back. We'll see what they end up doing. I can't say for certain. I will be previewing this game next week, so we'll talk about it more at that time. But for right now, that's the news we have, is that Jay Miller is expected to be out with an upper body injury against Florida State. We'll keep you guys updated as we learn more on the situation. The Big Ten has proposed a new playoff format, multiple new playoff formats, a 24 and a 28 team playoff. Now, understand and hearing this, that the SEC has also had internal discussions about how a 32 team playoff could work. Here's what I say about it. I don't like a playoff. I just don't. I don't like a playoff that has the following: auto bids that cater more towards one conference than the other. I don't like a playoff that involves the human element, which should not be a thing. In no sport do we see the human element play a factor in who makes or doesn't make a playoff. There needs to be a significant change to the way the playoffs are decided in order for me to even really continue to be happy with what we see now. My biggest proposal has always been the BCS system, because it is a formula based and calculated through computers that takes the human element completely out of it. Humans never had a deciding factor in who made a national championship game and who didn't. Now, we had that one shared championship, of course. I think it was LSU and Auburn maybe in 2003, or LSU and USC, one of the two. One team was AP poll number one team won the actual BCS championship. That won't happen here. When you're getting to a playoff deciding factor, it should not matter what name is on the helmet. It shouldn't matter what logo is on the helmet. It shouldn't matter what the helmet looks like. It shouldn't matter what the team name is, who the coaches are. It should not matter. The issue is that it has mattered. The money has mattered more than getting the best teams into the playoff over the last handful of years. And have we seen instances of problem? Yeah, absolutely. Florida State, for example, should have been in the playoff. Any team that's been undefeated should have made the playoff, and they did not because their quarterback got hurt, thus adding the human element. If you bring back BCS, at least the formula that puts together the rankings, the BCS top 25, but you did that for the entirety of college football, and then we had a 2018 playoff, yeah, I'm okay with that. You could do that for really anything you wanted to. But we need to take the human element out of this before I can really get behind anything, because I don't want to see 7 SEC and 7 Big Ten teams, because I can guarantee you that 7th Big Ten team isn't going to go win it. You're telling me that Iowa last year, and Iowa wasn't even 7th, you're telling me that Iowa last year could have won a national championship? No. How many of those 28 teams could really win a championship? I would say probably 7 or 8. Maybe. And that's last year, 7 or 8. How many of those 12 teams last year could have won a championship? I would say probably 7 or 8 last year. Could have legitimately gone out and won all the way through the championship game. It's just that's not the way the sport works, and we don't even rank this thing fairly to begin with. Why would I want to see 28 teams where 14 plus of them are probably undeserving? I don't like it. I don't really buy into it. We'll see. We'll see what they do, but it's not something I love. Here's the proposed format for those of you who have not heard, though. I will go ahead and talk about that rather than just flap my gums on my opinion. The 2018 format includes 4 first-round byes that would continue from what we currently see. It would include a first and second round of games being played on campus versus just the first round of games. A 2014 playoff would include 8 first-round byes, first and second round on campus as well, and then everything else would go back to your typical what you think you would see, the New Year's 6 games being played out until the national championship game. But it just doesn't really, I don't like it. I don't like the idea of having teams be guaranteed a spot into the playoff, because that's not how it should work. We don't, at the NFL level, and I'm comparing it to the NFL because that's the model they're taking after, right? The NIL, pay for play, playoffs. If that's the model we're taking after, okay, let's look at the NFL for a second. You got the 4 division champions, and then you have 3 wildcard teams that make up your 7 from each side. And then you have your number 1 overall seed getting a bye. How is all that determined? Well, it's determined by record. The record determines who you are and where you go. So, for example, last year, Detroit and Minnesota both were 14 or 15-2 or somewhere in that range. Both those teams made the playoffs considerably because one was a wild card team and one won the division. The Lions winning the division, Vikings winning the wild card, or being the wild card leaders. We don't have that similarity in college football. What we had, what the closest thing we've ever had to that was the BCS because it ranked teams based on a handful of things: strength of schedule, margin of victory, um, which people would call style points. But I mean, that's what they did. They determined like strength of schedule, margin of victory, um, and a handful of other different things added into that formula. That was probably the most fair we had it. And even though teams like Boise State got snubbed out of a national championship, hear me out. I hear you. Um, in a playoff format, it would have given us a really accurate, I think, 12-team playoff. It would have given us an accurate 14 playoff, what have you. Adding humans into it, adding humans into decision making, it has been probably one of the biggest hindrances to the growth of this playoff, and one of the biggest hindrances to the college football playoff in general being more successful. I think if we would stop looking at names, stop looking at coaches or players or whatever, and just look at the general body of work that these teams did without any names attached to it, I would think we have a much better. I would think we would put together a much better playoff format or a much better playoff field. That's just my take, and you're more than welcome to again agree, disagree, however you wish. The comment section is available for all of that because again, this is a community here at Armchair Analysis. I don't do this just to talk at you guys. I do this to talk with you guys, communicate with you guys, and you guys can throw whatever you feel down in the comments, and I'm here for it. I love it. So I appreciate you guys tuning in again. Let's go ahead and talk ACC. Let's preview this conference. Now, I've previewed every single team in the ACC. If you would like to go see that or maybe see your favorite team, there's a playlist on the channel. All 68 previews that we've done here, we did preview season, and that's what the playlist is properly titled. Preview season had every single Power 4 team, including Notre Dame, previewed. And we did every team in the ACC, and we had a lot of fun with it. And I put together my standings based on what I put together in my previews. I also have names to watch, a player of the year, coach of the year, and conference championship pick, just the same as we did last week for the group of 5. If you want to see my group of 5 previews, you can go ahead and check those out there on the channel as well. All week last week, that's all we did was group of 5. So with that said, let's talk ACC real quick, and we'll go through names to watch. Boston College's starting quarterback, Dylan Lonergan. He's going to be a big deal here. He's a transfer in from Alabama, a guy that Bill O'Brien has a lot of trust in, is giving him the reins to the offense, a guy that I'm looking forward to seeing how he utilizes his offense, his receivers, and how this team ultimately plays throughout the course of the year. A team I don't have a lot of high hopes for, but I think they can certainly be a pesky team over the course of the year. At Cal, I'm looking at wide receiver Jacob DeJesus, transferred in from UNLV. I think he's going to be probably a favorite target for Devin Brown, if I were to guess, the way this year will go. Cal's a team that is, again, like Boston College, I don't have a lot of high hopes for, but I certainly think they could surprise some people, and especially if DeJesus can figure it out at receiver and be a star receiver for this team, I think they have a really solid shot to maybe at least push for a bowl game, and I'd say the same about Boston College. At Clemson, I'm looking at running back Gideon Davidson. He's a freshman coming in, gonna be kind of curious to see how things go and what the battle at running back looks like to kind of replace Phil Maffa. I'm taking Gideon Davidson. I think eventually he will be the starting running back. His ability to kind of take the pressure off of Cade Klubnik a little bit, which is not going to really need to happen. Cade Klubnik's one of my favorites for the Heisman. I think Davidson's going to be a really fun player to watch this year. At Duke, I'm looking at wide receiver Andrew Anthony. We know what Jaquez Moore is. We know what Darian Mensah is. Who's the wide receiver that's going to step up? And I'm looking at Andrew Anthony. I think he's going to be solid. Has had really solid moments at Michigan. Had some good moments at Oklahoma. Never really broke out. Never really became the star player. Duke gives him the opportunity to do so. I'm excited to see what he brings to the offense at that position. At Florida State, I'm looking at wide receiver Squirrel White. He's been a guy who's really plugged and played at Tennessee and was really solid for the Vols over the last few years. Decided to transfer out, go down to Florida State, go to Tallahassee, and he's going to be paired up with Deuce Robinson. He's going to be, obviously, quarterback is Tommy Castellanos. We'll see what this offense looks like. Obviously, it'll be a really good gauge in week one, as we just talked about when they play Alabama. But I'm really excited for Squirrel White. I think he could have a really good year down there in Tallahassee. At Georgia Tech, I'm looking at defensive end Ronald Triplett. We know what the offense is going to be for Georgia Tech. It's the defense that really makes me kind of curious. Blake Gideon's coming in as a defensive coordinator, or returning as a defensive coordinator, taking over for Tyler Santucci, who really brought this defense together. I think Blake Gideon can kind of squeeze a little more out of it. Ronald Triplett they brought in from UTSA. I think he can be a really serious threat on the edge and can really open things up for the rest of this defense. They obviously got guys like Kyle Leifert as well. Georgia Tech's going to be a really fun team. I think they're going to really compete for maybe a conference championship opportunity. At at Louisville, I have defensive end Clev Lubin from Coastal. Very similar to what I just talked about with Ronald Triplett. Clev Lubin's a guy who I think is going to open up the door a little bit. They got three solid linebackers at Louisville that I think are going to step up and make some big plays. But Clev Lubin's a guy that I think coming off the edge is going to be underrated as we start the season. But people are going to figure out who he is really quick. He was a big time player at Coastal Carolina. I think he can make an impact at the Power 5 level. At Miami, I'm looking at Josiah Trader, wide receiver. I just think he's going to have a breakout year this year. I'm expecting big things from him. I think he'll become an early favorite for Carson Beck. And I think he's going to have, a really, really good year in his first true opportunity to start full-time at Miami. At North Carolina, I'm looking at whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Gio Lopez or Max Johnson. Both these guys are going to be competing for this job for a while, I think. Max Johnson, of course, came over last year, got hurt in the first game against Minnesota. Gio Lopez was a star for South Alabama, is going to be a star again, whether or not he starts this year or next year or at some time later this year. I think that if it's Gio Lopez, I think they have a win-now mentality. If it's Max Johnson, I think it's just going to kind of be see what happens, because I'm curious how healthy he is and how fully recovered he is, or how close to fully recovered he is from the knee injury last year. They have a tough game Labor Day against TCU. It's going to be an opportunity to figure out what they have at the quarterback position, whoever they end up starting. At NC State, I'm looking at wide receiver Noah Rogers. I'm expecting a little more out of him. He transferred, of course, from Ohio State at the offseason last year after 2023, and was expected to be a pretty solid part of this offense, and didn't really step up, didn't really make the plays. But C.J. Bailey's going to get another chance to start this year, and I'm expecting that Noah Rogers kind of becomes a leader in that wide receiver room, as he's pretty much the most experienced guy left on the roster. At Pitt, I'm looking at the linebacker room. I think they're just going to be a top 5 group in college football. I'm really looking at Kyle Lewis. I think he's going to be an absolute star again this year. Probably a first-team All-ACC, maybe even first-team All-American. But I'm really looking for him to be a serious difference maker on defense for the Panthers this year. At SMU, I'm looking at safety Isaiah Nokobia. This is a team that just has very little experience returning on the defensive side of the ball, period. Nokobia is, I think, the guy who can really step up, make a lot of plays, and truly form into that leadership role that people have really thought that he could be over the last couple of seasons. At Stanford, running back Micah Ford is a guy that I think is going to have to step up big time. Look, there are already underdogs on the road in Hawaii in week 0. I'm not pulling that upset particularly, but I think that, I had a conversation earlier today that Stanford is not much better than Hawaii as it stands. I think that Micah Ford's going to be a big deal because, look, they have a really young quarterback in Elijah Brown. They're going to have to give him some time. They have a bunch of guys that transferred into this program who kind of got the rug pulled out from under them when the Troy Taylor firing happened. And now they're going to be playing for Frank Reich. He's an NFL coach, yes, but he's only there for a year. It's already been announced he's only there for a year. How much are these guys really going to give for this program? It's a question I do have, and I do wonder what it'll look like. Sanford, not a team I have a whole lot of high hopes for. At Syracuse, I'm looking at quarterback Steve Angeli. It was announced today he'll be the starter for the Orange this season, and he's just going to be a guy who I think is going to step up and be a leader from the beginning. This is not a team with a lot of returning talent throughout the entirety of the offense. It would be nice if they had a guy like LeQuint Allen coming back, or a Trevor Pena or whoever, but they don't. They're going to have to figure it out early and often. The defense looks good. Deuce Chestnut at safety was another guy I considered, but I feel like the quarterback position, as much as it means to every team, really has some weight it's going to carry for Syracuse this year. At Virginia, I'm looking at linebacker Cam Robinson. They're super high on what he can be again this year, and I think the defense is a part of this team that they're really going to like. They're another team that I predicted them 4-8. I predicted a couple other teams 4-8, but I do expect that they could maybe be a little better than that. I think they could probably push for a bowl game. It's not a guarantee. Nothing is in college football, but I think that they have a roster with the talent and potential to maybe be a bowl team. At Virginia Tech, I'm looking at wide receiver Donovan Green. I think that he's a guy, an underrated addition. He was really solid for Wake Forest the last couple of years. Unfortunately, Wake Forest had quarterback issues that they just could not get over. And I think this year, Kyron Drones going into year 3 as a starter could be a really big addition to have a guy like Donovan Green who knows how to run routes, is a pretty solid playmaker. It's going to be an interesting duo to watch. I really think Virginia Tech, as much as I'm not high on them, they're another team that I could see them doing something. I don't trust the coaching staff more than it is the players. At wide receiver, I'm looking at, wide receiver, no. At Wake Forest, I'm looking at running back DeMont Claiborne. He is one of the fastest players in college football. He's going to be a playmaker. He's going to be a big deal for this team. They're going to want to run the ball a lot. Look, they don't really know what they have at quarterback. They have Robbie Ashford. I know what they have at quarterback. I've watched them for a handful of years. We've all seen them for a handful of years at times. But at running back, I think their ability to run the ball, that's kind of the focus they're going to have this year under year 1 in Jake Dickert's tenure. They're not quite where they want to be. They would like to have a little more, but I do like DeMont Claiborne. I think he's going to be a really fun player to watch, and a guy that they really utilize as much as they possibly can throughout the course of the season with this offense. So, moving on with that, let's go ahead and look at conference standings, and then I'll give you guys player of the year, coach of the year, and championship picks. My prediction for conference standings are on your screen now, and look, I'm picking Clemson as the overall number 1 out of this regular season. I have them 12-0. I think they are going to be better than every team they play. I think they're going to be favored in every game they play, to include Week 1 against LSU. They're going to have a tough road game at the end of the year against South Carolina. They have some other tough ones. I believe a Friday game against Louisville that's on the road that's going to be tough. But I think they're going to get through it all. I think Clemson will be 12-0. Miami, I had 11-1, but 8-0 in conference. They're my number 2. They will be meeting Clemson in Charlotte. That is my pick for the conference championship game. 3 through 6 was interesting because all 4 of these teams had a 9-3 record in my prediction. Duke, Georgia Tech, and Pitt had a 6-2 record in conference, but we're 9-3. So what I did was predicted what I thought was more likely to be where. So I picked Duke at 3, Georgia Tech 4, Pitt 5. A lot of people are high on Georgia Tech. I love Georgia Tech, think they're going to be good, but I like Duke a little bit more. Therefore, I'm putting them there. Pitt's a team I really like. I think they're a fun team to watch. Louisville's going to be a really good team at 6. And then it gets down to teams that I think are just going to kind of be solid, but I just don't know how good they can get. North Carolina was a team I predicted 8-4, but I had them at 5-3, and that's where we're at, is 5-3 now, starting with Louisville. 5-3 rolls all the way through Florida State, so 6, 7, 8, 9. North Carolina, SMU, Florida State. I think that SMU is just going to be a little bit worse than they were last year. Part of that's going to be because they got a tougher schedule, but they also have, I think, I just don't see them being able to replicate last year. Florida State, I don't see being able to replicate last year. I don't think 2-10's in the cards again. I think they'll be much better. I had them at 7-5. Again, North Carolina, they're a team that I think is good. I think could be even better. but I just wanted to stay kind of neutral. I don't want to overreact to coach hiring. I don't want to overreact to what they could be. Let's just let them prove it. 10 and 11, I had Syracuse and Virginia Tech. Those two teams I had at 3 and 5 in conference play. Wake Forest I had at, and NC State I had at 2 and 6 in conference play, 12 and 13. And then 14 through 17, I had all four of them at 1 and 7 in conference play. Virginia I thought would be a little better, but the problem with Virginia is they play a tougher schedule than they did last year, where they would certainly be probably a bowl team and maybe even an 8-win team. But I just don't see that this year, given the fact that they do have a really tough schedule. Cal, a team that I'm not sure about. Stanford, I've already talked about. I really don't know what they're going to end up being. Boston College, I talked about being better than predicted. But all in all, I think the ACC is just better this year than they were last year. I think there's a lot of teams that are better. And they're going to be a fun, really fun conference to watch, I think, here in 2025. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know who you guys have as your two teams going to Charlotte. And let me know who you guys have winning the conference. I will tell you guys right now, I have Clemson beating Miami as my conference champions here in the ACC. I think Clemson's just going to be that good. They are my preseason number one. I will give you guys that information that will be coming out tomorrow. They're my preseason number one. I think they're the best team in college football right now. And there's not a whole lot that can change my mind until we see differently on the field. We know what we're going to get. We know what they look like. And I'm really excited for the changes they made. Tom Allen's going to be a big deal on the defensive coordinator position. It's going to be a really fun team to watch, a really good football team. Clemson might just be back. That's for sure. As for Player of the Year, I got Kate Klubnik. I think he's going to really show a lot of people what he can do. I think he's going to be a Heisman contender. He may be a Heisman favorite. I don't know, but I certainly think he will be making a trip to New York at the end of the year. I think he'll be the best player in this conference. At Coach of the Year, I got Manny Diaz. As much as I would love to put an undefeated Dabo Swinney as that guy, Manny Diaz, a 9-3 year, 6-2 in conference, third place in the conference. If my prediction holds true, that's a really big deal. Duke has been a team that has certainly had their moments over the last handful of years, but this would be, I mean, we're starting to see a pattern where Duke is really just playing really good football and being a really good football team. And I don't think they're a playoff team, at least not yet, and they're certainly probably a year or two off if they can continue doing what they've been doing. But I think it's extremely impressive what we've seen out of Manny Diaz so far in his time with the Blue Devils. So let me know what you guys think, again, about everything we've seen or heard here today. And thank you all for tuning in again. We will be back again tomorrow. Big 12 preview. I got plenty to say about the Big 12. We'll have my top 25 dropping tomorrow as well. Make sure you stick around. Make sure you tune in for that. That's a big deal. That's a lot of stuff. A lot of content to drop. Wednesday will be Big 12 preview. Really excited, Big 10 preview. Excited for that one. That's also going to include my 12-team playoff that we're going to drop there on you for Wednesday. Thursday will be SEC preview, which will include my Heisman predictions, along with my predictions for the SEC. Any other news we see dropping, we'll get that out there as well. And then Friday will be our Take 10 will return. I'll give you guys 10 picks for the week 0 week, along with some over-unders that I bet personally. Again, that's not betting advice. That's not me telling you what to bet. That's just me telling you guys this is what I'm looking at. This is what I like. Follow me if you wish. Fade me if you wish. I don't really care. But we're just doing it for fun. I enjoy doing it, kind of keeping track of my progress throughout the year and my overall numbers through the year. So make sure you tune in for that on Friday. We'll also give you guys my ultimate college football road trip, which is, again, if money were no object, if I could do whatever I wanted in life and could make a trip to any game I wanted at any given week, what games would I go to and what would it look like through the 2025 season of college football? I love doing that every year. I think this is going to be year 4 of that, so I'm excited to do it. And, Saturday we'll have a preview show for the games coming up. Sunday we'll have a bit of a recap show about a couple hours worth of, not a couple hours, about a half hour worth of recap of Saturday. And then again next week, it's all about week one, previewing week one. We got so many big game breakdowns to do. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I probably should find a different term. But we got so many breakdowns to do for the games coming up in week one. We'll have predictions and all kinds of stuff to do, along with Take 10 on Friday again, as that will always be a Friday episode. So make sure you stick around. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Hope y'all have a fantastic rest of your Monday. And we will see you guys tomorrow again with the Big 12 Conference Preview.